We're live, or we're on.
Welcome.
Nailed it, Jared. Perfect.
He pointed.
He did. It's not his fault. That's completely me. Welcome to episode 24 of the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, Kayla.
Are you?
Jeez.
That's off to a good
Off
start.
to a great start,
Yeah.
right. Perfect.
This is my analyst, Nick Lesogor.
You're forgetting to mention first place in the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football League.
Does anyone else agree that he needs to calm down?
Thanks. 3-1.
He beat me. I can't say anything.
I beat him handedly.
He also thought I was last in our league, but I'm fifth.
That's right, sir. 3-1. First place. Thank you.
Nobody's looking at
They
him.
say act like you've been there before. I will not. I will gloat in this. The champ is here. You're welcome. You can listen to everything I say tonight because that's how this is going to go.
I'm 3-1 as well, so.
Who's in first place?
My team will not lose a game the rest of the season.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. We'll track that. Board bet? Is that
I'm not taking that because someone could get hurt.
That seems
But
pretty
my
risky.
team is by far the best.
Do you want to tab bet it?
And I am Steve Picco. You can follow me at Uncle Stav while he's gloating over there.
You can follow me at Katelyn Jean, and pretty much just don't follow Nick because he's being annoying.
Fair enough.
Well, guys, we had Thursday Night Football last night.
We did.
It was pretty much just like Monday Night Football, a complete disaster. So what do you think? Vikings. I mean, I was pretty surprised. I went against Matt Asiata, and he had nothing.
Yes. My quick takeaways. Be glad that you didn't trade Eddie Lacy. So this is what you're going to get out of him. Mm-hmm. He's going to be a stud. And if you're in a keeper league, specifically like one keeper league, he's the guy that you're going to want to keep going forward. The way he started out, those are three tough rush defenses that I think any running back would have struggled with. This is what you're going to get out of him. I'm a little concerned with the amount of play that James Starks got. Mm-hmm. But overall, Lacy is clearly the better runner in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I drafted him in our league. I drafted him high. I had no plans on trading him. And in other leagues, I wanted to go get him because I knew that owner was down. I actually traded, like I mentioned before, I traded Peyton Manning along with other people to get Lacy.
Wow.
Like I was that high on him because I knew he would rebound off those three tough starts. And that's what he gave you last night. And it's like Eddie Lacy owners, you can take a deep breath. Everything's going to be good. My takeaway last night was the actual Green Bay wide receivers. Jordy Nelson gets one catch, albeit a 70-yard touchdown, but I thought they'd be more involved. I think it was good for Green Bay to get Eddie Lacy going, but I was a little surprised Jordy Nelson came away with only one catch.
I think they had a game plan, and they had played it to perfection. Run, and run some more because that defensive line is atrocious.
Well, they came out firing, and then they scored two quick touchdowns with the Nelson and Cobb, and then it kind of changed right there, I think. And they were like, okay, we're going to establish Lacy. He had those two good runs early at 20 yards, and then it was air it out, and then they kind of got back into Lacy, Starks, and kind of grind the clock out.
It sounded to me set up the pass with the run, or set up the run with the pass. I'm sorry. Came out passing early, and then they just leaned on the run. And, like you alluded to before we came on the air, Aaron Rodgers was taken out in the third quarter, and for Aaron Rodgers owners, 18 points just wasn't enough.
Right.
He was on pace to score 30, 40 points, so that was frustrating.
Take away from Minnesota at all?
They're not good. Christian Ponder is the worst backup quarterback. How he has a job, I understand third string, but how he has a job is beyond me.
I ponder how he's still in the NFL. He's just really
Glad
not.
we waited for that one.
He's just not he just really isn't good, and they couldn't take him out because the backup quarterback they had last night assigned yesterday.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know any plays. They couldn't do anything. I thought it was going to be a lot more Asiata and McKinnon. I thought it was going to be a great McKinnon show, actually.
But when you're down by that much that early, you got to throw. They had no choice.
Yeah, I thought they could establish the run earlier in the game with Asiata and McKinnon, and that just didn't happen. And then when you get down, 20 points, 21 points.
I mean,
you can't establish the run at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you think about it, Julius Peppers runs back that touchdown off the interception. The very next series, Ponder throws another pick.
Lacy's touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you're down by so much so early. They didn't have a choice. In terms of Christian Ponder, as long as he's in the game, I'm sitting Cordero Patterson.
I wanted to hear your take on Patterson.
I'm sitting him until Teddy Bridgewater gets in the game. And if you he's a guy buy low on Patterson.
He had a quote actually today or after the game last night. He didn't really sound too pleased with the way things were going. He said he doesn't know what's going on. He basically is just buying into the coach's system because he believes it will work. But he would like to get more touches, he said. And he should. He should be getting at least 10 touches a game, running or catching.
Right.
Why not give this guy the ball?
Yeah.
He knows He knows as well as anybody, especially in that organization. As long as Christian Ponder's behind center, he's a dead man in terms of fantasy.
Even with Bridgewater last week, he didn't get too much action either, which is kind of surprising. I think I'm sitting him next week because I can't trust him yet. Mm-hmm. But I think once Teddy Bridgewater has a good week with him, I think he could, like you said, buy low, definitely.
The more him and Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to gel. There's no doubt about it. And I like him going forward. Like I said, he's a buy low candidate for sure.
I hope it's soon because I have Cordarrelle Patterson and I need some points from him. So let's move into our J'adore and our No Bueno list. But before I do that, let me just remind everyone that we do have 2 teams on a bye this week, Miami Dolphins and the Oakland Raiders. And I'm not sure that affects too many people, specifically with Oakland.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely does. You're looking at, Lamar Miller, Mike Wallace.
Specifically with Oakland.
Specifically with Oakland,
James Jones you could throw in the mix.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's
Darren McFadden,
it's
MJD.
probably not going to be a huge effect, at least there. But for Lamar Miller, for sure.
12, 14-team leagues, you're probably starting McFadden, probably starting MJD in a 14-team league. So with him on bye, you have to look to another. I think a lot of people started Jerick McKinnon, this week because they didn't have a choice. They had MJD on a bye. So, yeah, not a ton of guys, but certainly noteworthy.
Yeah. So, in terms of our J'adore list, Nick,
kick
it off.
My J'adore list starts with Mike Glennon at New Orleans. Early game, 1:00 in a dome. Mike Glennon showed last year that he should have been the starter there this year, and boy, does he love him some Vincent Jackson. So, two of those drives down the field last week. Game-winning drive to tie it and then to eventually win it. He looked towards Vincent Jackson's way 3 or 4 times, close to the red zone. Start Vincent Jackson this week without even thinking. Glennon makes him so much better. He didn't have any type of rapport with Josh McCown. As long as Glennon is the starter, he's going to look Vincent Jackson's way. I think Mike Evans being out kind of hurts him, but I think overall you're going to have a great week from Glennon. Wouldn't surprise me if he had more than Aaron Rodgers did this week.
Saints are one of the worst pass defenses in the league. If you're stuck in that a 2-quarterback league, a 16-team league, you're choosing. I might even take Glennon over my No Bueno quarterback at this point. He should light it up this week.
Jarvis Bird down for the year. They just put him on IR today. Huge hit to that Saints defense.
Big hit to their wallet.
Nailed it. my RB1, DeMarco Murray.
Bold.
Yeah, right. Well, listen, I think the Texans have a better defensive line than people give them credit for. And I know Clowney's out, but you still got J.J. Watt there. Jonathan Joseph. You have guys on that defense that can make plays. I'm a Romo guy this week mainly because I have to start him. But I think that they're going to throw the ball a little bit more than what a lot of analysts outside of Dirty Water News are saying. Just in terms of they want to give Murray the ball, but he can also catch passes out of the backfield, as we've seen. He's the best running back in terms of fantasy so far this year. And I expect him to have another great week. Just I don't know if it's going to be on the ground. I think it might be through the air more than.
I'd like to see him establish a passing game a little more. I think he's been more ground and pound this year, and we haven't seen that side of DeMarco yet. So I think you might be right on this one. I don't say that too often either.
You're not going to say it on this one. Bishop Sankey, my RB2.
Oh, man.
When they finally gave him play last week, and he ends up garbage time, call it what you want, but he's the best-looking running back on that team, and it's not even close. And it's surprising and baffling to me that it has taken Ken Wisenhunt this long to figure it out. He said recently, about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, he needed his footwork to improve.
I don't know what that means.
Give me a break.
It definitely wasn't his footwork.
Get this guy in the game. He's to me, he can be a stud if you give him the work. I buy into the whole idea of, the garbage time and that matters, but Sankey is more talented than that.
What about against the Browns D?
They do not have a good rush defense. They do not. I think their pass defense with Joe Hayden is good, but their rush defense, I think Sankey's going to run all over. if they give him the opportunity.
It's time for Sankey to start getting increasing carries. But they did it right by starting the veteran and have his earn his reps, get the garbage time, which he's done well in. And I think Sankey is going to get an expanded role. It's definitely going to be at least split. I think Sean Green, him, a cluster, more Sean Green, Sankey. But get ready because the Sankey train's coming. And you've been conducting it.
Is that too much?
Good job.
Wide receiver 1, Marcus Wheaton. This week, this is when he gets his first touchdown. At Jacksonville, they can't stop a nosebleed. I got nothing else. It's as simple as that. They're awful. They're awful. And you may see the situation. Ben Roethlisberger's taken out with 3 minutes left in the fourth because they're up by so much. And Marcus Wheaton, to me, he is a borderline wide receiver 1. And I know we haven't seen it from him, but this defense is just so bad. Him and Antonio Brown should have no problem going off. If he throws up 5 points, you have something to worry about as a Marcus Wheaton owner. Okay. My wide receiver 2, Roddy White. I think I had him on my list a few weeks ago, too. I just love me some Roddy White. I still think he's Matt Ryan's go-to guy. I know they have number 11 there. I get that. But Roddy White came out today, promised he was going to get a touchdown, essentially.
I love when players do that.
They never usually perform when they do.
Right.
Nonetheless, I'm starting him. I think that Roddy White's a guy that you have Prince Amukamara there and Antonio Rogers-Cromartie. Cromartie's going to be on Julio, so you'd figure that Amukamara is going to be on Roddy White. I'm not as big on those guys as most analysts are. I think Roddy White has the ability to tear up this defense. Because outside of those two guys, I don't think there's anybody else that's all that good.
I think White has the chance to tear up basically any defense as the number 2 receiver. He's gonna get the second cornerback like you just hit on. And Julio Jones is going to be the deep downfield threat. And that if Matt Ryan can't go to him, he's probably going to check down to Roddy White. So, I mean, he's Mr. Consistent to me. I love me some Roddy White, just like you stated.
Yeah.
But, play him. Why not?
Absolutely.
Play him.
My tight end, Larry Donnell, he took himself out of this fantasy lineup last week and ended up losing his fantasy game,
That was great.
which was
He
always
was
smart.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Believe in yourself, Larry. So, because we all do. And I think that Eli Manning does as well. I mean, the guy he leans on his tight ends. There's no doubt about it. He did it with Jeremy Shockey, and he's going to do it with Larry Donnell. And I think this is not a flash in the pan. Is he going to have Julius Thomas numbers from last year? I don't think so. I don't think the offense is high-powered enough, but he's going to give you close to a touchdown a game. I think double digits is what you're looking at. This guy going into next season's drafts, fantasy drafts, he can be a top-tier tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He has that upside.
He's proved it last week, that's for sure.
The Philadelphia Eagles DST this week for me. They're playing St. Louis. The only guy to me they have is Zach Stacy, who I just traded for this week. I'm very excited about. The Eagles' defensive line, I don't think it's that good. I think that Zach Stacy can run on them, but I think the Rams are only going to score about 14 points, and I think those can come from Zach Stacy. 14, 17 points, and I think that's good enough for the Eagles. So grab a bunch of sacks, maybe a couple picks. No, I'm not an Austin Davis guy just yet, and I think that Kenny Britt has shown us nothing.
Yeah,
What about Brian Quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be all right. 5 points, 6 points. I mean, I like the cornerbacks in Philly. I actually think they have talented guys there. And now, for Caitlin's
My turn.
For Caitlin's J'adore
I won't
list.
even say it because you do it so good.
Am I doing good, Steve, on that?
You have to have more of a French accent, like j'adore.
Oh, all right. So
J'adore.
it can't be so emphatic. It has to be a little bit relaxed.
Yeah, just be like, j'adore.
Right. I mean, as you know, I'm a bilingual baby.
Right.
So
Take it from Pepe Le Pew over here. Anywho, for my quarterback, I'm going to start Russell Wilson, who has had a decent fantasy year. I mean, not someone that I would necessarily have picked up, early on in my drafts, but I am definitely going to start him against the Redskins, seeing what they did last week against the Giants. I mean, the Giants just ripped them up, which was pretty surprising considering how often I was saying the Giants suck about 2 episodes ago. So, and that's due in big part, I think, to obviously Eli Manning getting his act together and Larry Donnell, who they just could not stop. So I do think Russell Wilson will have a big game. I expect a lot out of him. And, you know, I think this is probably one of his best matchups all year. So if there's any week to start Russell Wilson, this is probably it.
Is Russell Wilson the most underrated fantasy quarterback?
I think it seems like it because he's not talked about, at least around draft time.
They run the ball a ton.
But he's just, like, consistent, like 16 to 20 points.
Well, and that's
every
what's surprising
week.
when I was looking it up. He has had consistently good fantasy weeks. He's not a Matt Ryan who's getting 24, 25 points necessarily, but he's getting you consistently
but Matt Ryan's
good
going to have
numbers.
his weeks where he gives you
a
12 or 13.
Right.
And he's going to have your weeks that you give him the 24. I'd rather have that guy that gives you 18 on the nose every week.
Washington Redskins give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I like Russell Wilson this week as well.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good week. For my RB1, I have Frank Gore. The Chiefs ranked 19th in rush defense, and you wouldn't know that against the Patriots necessarily last week, but whatever. Gore had 119 yards and 24 carries last week. I think some people are really high on him, some people are not, and I think a lot of it has to do with his age, but he is obviously consistently proven to a lot of people who said Carlos Hyde would have a lot of carries this year, that he still has it, and I think that he's going to put up great yardage and hopefully get into the end zone, especially given that they are at home. And I think if this was in Kansas City, it could potentially be a totally different story, but just because it's a tough place to play. But I think against the Chiefs at home in San Francisco, I expect Gore to have a good game.
Are the 49ers back to giving him the ball?
Oh, no doubt about it. After last week,
seems like it.
I think they toyed around with like, all right, we're gonna let Kaepernick throw.
Yeah.
My theory is when you pay a quarterback big money, he can't hand the ball off 30 times a game. You don't pay him that much money to hand the ball off. You pay him to pass and make plays.
Right.
But I think Harbaugh's done with that. He tried it that way, went 1-2, and I think they were like, here's Frank Gore.
Nailed it. I was just going to say that.
And he hasn't actually gotten into the end zone yet this year, I don't believe. So
he had the receiving.
He had the receiving.
So he had a receiving touchdown.
Okay,
week, that's right.
I mean,
but aside from that, just once, right?
Are you guys buying Gore or?
Absolutely.
I sold on him actually a couple weeks ago. He was part of the Eddie Lacy trade. I still have him, I think, in every other league because I was so high on him. But maybe it's a good thing I held on to him in 4 out of the.
I think you nailed that. I wasn't high on him this year. You nailed that. I think Frank Gore, they went 1-2, and they said, all right, time to get back to what we do best.
Yeah. And why are people high on him? Do you think it's because of his age, or do you think it's because of the whole
They just bought into the Carlos Hyde hype, and everybody was like.
And his age.
Yeah.
They're going to take it over, and it's just that's not Jim Harbaugh. He's going to run it. He's going to take the guy and pound it down their throats. That's what he does all the time.
Yep. For my RB2, going back to what you said earlier about the Eagles, I have Zach Stacy, he's put up decent numbers in his past 2 games. He's coming off a bye. I do think that against, a struggling Eagles rush defense that he's probably going to have a good game. They've allowed, I saw over 21 fantasy points to running backs this season. So, for Zach Stacy, this is as good a week as any for a real breakout, I think. I think he'll have a good week.
Yeah, we seconded that.
What was your trade for him, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, man, I'd have to look it up. I got rid of I traded Jimmy Graham, Chris Ivory.
Whoa.
I was 1-3. I traded Jimmy Graham, Chris Ivory, and Mike Wallace for Zach Stacy, Pierre Garçon, Michael Crabtree, and the 4th guy.
Stacy, Crabtree,
Garçon,
and then there was a 4th guy added that I'll pull that up.
Interesting. Jimmy Graham.
And Jason Witten. Jason Witten was the 4th. Needed huge wide receiver and running back depth. So
interesting. Cool.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Sweet.
For my wide receivers, I am starting Percy Harvin this week. He's done decently well for me, and I think he hasn't necessarily lived up to everyone's expectations. But again, the same as Russell Wilson, the Redskins' pass defense just is not good. I see Wilson going to him quite a bit. I think he's primed for a big game. Redskins have allowed the 7th most points to wide receivers this season, so I'm expecting Harvin to have a good game. Hopefully, though, that it's not, to your earlier point, it's not so, such a blowout that they're sitting Wilson and, they're just running the ball, for the rest of the game. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. I think that's a risk at any point this year.
Flex. Percy Harvin or Gronk?
I'm going to go Gronk. I really am.
Percy, to me, it's not even close.
If I had Percy Harvin
this week,
yeah.
If I had Percy Harvin, I would have sold him after his first week. Just because I don't think he's ever going to live up to that hype again. That first week they were doing reverses with him, they were getting him the ball, and then just haven't kind of done that, in the 3 games.
You should see more of that this week. That St. Louis defense is not as good as I think you gave it credit for at the beginning.
They're definitely not that good.
Yeah, and so I definitely don't. I think they have some work to do.
My second wide receiver, definitely Steve Smith. If anyone remembers in our live draft show, I was totally criticized for picking up Steve Smith.
You still should be criticized for picking up
him in the 10th round. Even that was probably a little early at that point. But man, has he done me some good. Yeah. I mean, he has been unbelievable. Last week was ridiculous. This week's against the Colts. I mean, again, I don't think this is necessarily a dig on the Colts D. It's more that Joe Flacco and Steve Smith have an amazing rapport right now, and I just see this heating up for the rest of the season.
And the Colts D is awful.
I can't wait for them to do that off the Owen Daniels hands to Steve Smith in the straight route.
They had been practicing that all year.
Yeah, he's been absolutely.
And I can see you. You're one of those owners that were like, yeah, huge touchdown. It's like, what a fluke of a play. Like,
absolutely.
Who cares? If
you're playing Steve Smith last week, you're sitting there, you're going.
She nailed it, though. It got her points. A touchdown's a touchdown. And it was a fluke. But, I mean, 130-something yards. I think it was 2 touchdowns. Great week.
60 of them on that one catch.
Sell high.
Yep.
Win's a win, baby. For my tight end, Garrett Graham, who's not someone I would necessarily ever start, really. He's not someone I'm hugely excited about, but and there's definitely better tight ends to start if you have them.
Charles Clay is on a bye this week.
Yep. But Dallas is actually apparently the worst team in the league against defending tight ends. So they've allowed 17.5 fantasy points to tight ends, and that's way beyond anyone else. So I think, if anything, this is probably the game where he could potentially have a lot of points. And obviously, I'm assuming that Houston's going to kind of plan their game plan around that stat.
You stole my thunder. I used to pick every tight end against the Cowboys.
It's a mind reader. Or I'm smart. I'm not sure. Maybe both. For my defense, this pains me, but I'm definitely starting Cincinnati as a Patriots fan. I want the Patriots to win. Don't get me wrong. But if you have the Bengals defense after last week, I mean, man, it would be pretty tough to sit them. I think seeing what the Patriots offense is doing right now, which is essentially giving it directly to the other team.
Could see a pick 6 in this game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Uncle Stav?
My j'adore list.
Wow.
Quarterback, I'm going to go Ben Roethlisberger, and at the beginning of the season, I couldn't be more low on this guy. I just basically threw him off of the fantasy, map and just said, I'm good, I'm not touching him. Completely rejuvenates himself, it seems, this year. Kind of like a Steve Smith-esque, if you may. Last week, just absolutely torches it. 377, 3 touchdowns. It helps that he's throwing to this guy, Antonio Brown, who's apparently pretty good.
Evidently.
But I think he's benefiting off of the Le'Veon Bell game. How he's just dominating the run, which is allowing him to drop back and make good passes. So he's going against a Jags defense that is 32nd in the league against opposing quarterbacks. Like,
there you go.
Put him in there.
Yep.
Like if he's on your bench, like him or Cam Newton, easily Ben Roethlisberger. Him. Eli Manning, I'm going to go Ben Roethlisberger.
Now, is this a start because of he's facing the Jaguars, or would you be starting him throughout the rest of the year?
I'm doing that. Jaguars are giving 321 yards per game passing. He's coming off 377, and it's just too easy for me.
He's a certified starter rest of the year, as long as he keeps playing this way.
On my RB1, I'm going to go Giovanni Bernard against New England.
Love him.
Pains
me.
Getting
me a lot of points, but it pains me. Exactly.
But, Patriots 28th against the run. And everybody in the world saw what happened to them Monday night. Jamal Charles, Niall Davis just destroyed them. It was just ugly.
So depressing.
Gio's fresh off the bye week. I expect him to do real big things. I also think Jeremy Hill's a slight flex consideration this week because I think it could get ugly up in New England on Sunday night. Big sides. It stinks.
Terrible.
But we have to accept this, and we just have to move on, I guess.
Terrible.
Right. Nailed it.
RB2, Ahmad Bradshaw. This is a guy I kind of
surprising.
I went after him in a lot of leagues. I ended up taking him in the 8th round in one league. And when I made the pick, I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like it. Like, it was a live draft, so I put it up on the board, and I was like, oh, I don't like that.
Probably just because he was on the Giants before.
And it's like he was very good on the Giants, but I made the pick.
Injury prone, baby.
I was mad, and then I was like, this could be great. Like, Trent Richardson is just not the same.
No.
I don't think any fantasy footballer thought it would be this good. You're talking about a guy that's had carries, yard totals, 15, 70, 65, 32 yards. They all come with touchdowns. You want to talk about, and I think Katelyn and I touched on this last week, you want to talk about a guy who's made the most of the small situation, and he's really just came onto the scene. He's taken Trent Richardson off the field single-handedly. Trent Richardson's play has a lot to do with it.
Richardson actually hasn't been playing that bad, I thought, this year. I think he's running the ball well, but Bradshaw is just, when they try to do that up-tempo offense, it's Bradshaw in there, and when they're on the goal line, it's Bradshaw. They do a play action, and then they hit him as he sneaks off. That's how he catches all his touchdowns. All his 4 touchdowns this year are receiving. He injured his ankle last week, comes back into the game, gets his receiving touchdown, gets everybody their points. He's in a walking boot leaving the game, but they said that was just precautionary, so don't worry. I'm buying him this week.
Okay.
Wide receiver 1.
Oh, God. Just goes with our
King Salsa, baby.
We
King
speak different
Salsa.
languages. We dance.
Is it because you have him in your league? In our league?
He's back. King Salsa is back. Just acquired him actually in another league as well, because I'm so high on this guy right now. It seems that Eli is clicking.
Are we jumping on the Eli and the Giants bandwagon too soon?
Eli has
Not that I'm ever on the Giants.
The Giants
bandwagon.
have these little stints that they're gonna play unbelievable and then they'll play really bad.
Right, because he was doing. I mean, that was not good the first 3 weeks.
He just couldn't get anything going, and now they have it going. I'm just gonna keep fueling that train. Just putting it in there because it's going to ride at least for a couple weeks, and then they'll lose a bunch of games and we can make fun of them again. But until that train runs out of gas, I'm buying Victor Cruz going forward.
Consistency. I want to see more of it before I decide that he's my wide receiver 1.
He's getting 8 targets a game. He's on back-to-back 100-yard games. The only thing that really hurts him is Larry Donnell in the red zone. I mean, it just hurts him. And, they have a great running back now in Rashard Jennings and even Andre Williams that can punch it in. So he's going to lose those red zone targets. But he can get them down the field, and he can get you yards. In PPR leagues, he's definitely an easy starter, wide receiver 2, if not our wide receiver 1.
He'll still end up with some if that offense is as good as Katelyn sort of prefaced asking us that question, are we jumping on too soon? We are. And but if they're that good, he's going to get his touchdowns.
I agree.
Eli's not going to leave him out to dry.
Wide receiver 2, another surprise for me, Kelvin Benjamin. Just the success of rookie wide receivers in the NFL is just not good. And I was so down on the Panthers earlier this year. Then I bought back in, and I'm kind of off the Cam Newton train. But I am all in on Kelvin Benjamin. He's just beasting everybody that he's playing. And he has a great matchup this week against the Bears, a beat-up secondary. He's going to be playing another rookie in Kyle Fuller. It's just got mismatch written all over it. And whoever's throwing him the ball, whether it be Cam Newton or if he gets injured, and Derek Anderson comes in, I still think he's going to get his targets, and I still think he's going to get his production.
Yeah.
Tight end, Heath Miller. Why? He's facing the Jaguars. Another reason, he's coming off a 10-catch game, 85 yards and a touchdown. He's the Dennis Pitta to Ben Roethlisberger.
I think he once was the Dennis Pitta to Ben Roethlisberger.
And then Antonio Brown came in.
I think Antonio Brown is the Dennis Pitta to Ben Roethlisberger.
But what happens when you can't throw it to Brown, or a guy like you're high on, you can't throw it to Wheaton?
He's a safety blanket for sure.
He's just kind of there.
It's just he hasn't had that year that I thought he would have yet.
Last game definitely was
welcomed for sure.
But if you got a guy like if you had Charles Clay, you drafted him. Maybe we did, but
yes. And then we traded for Gronk.
Most people probably picked up Heath Miller this week on waivers, and if you're in that 10 to 15 range, I would probably take Miller over them just because they're facing Jacksonville. And my defense is the San Diego Chargers facing the Jets. Geno Smith is just a head case right now. I think Chris Ivory will do well. I actually think Chris Ivory is a top 20 running back going forward in fantasy football this year. But I still think it's going to come down to Geno Smith, and he just can't make those throws.
I'm not sure. I feel like they're going to be a little underwhelming this week. I think Geno has proven that he can play, on the road. Look at what he did to Green Bay. He put up 20 points on Green Bay. It would have been more had that timeout not been called. He's shown that he can play on the road. It's just a matter of whether or not it'll actually happen. I'm not saying San Diego's going to score -2. They'll be all right. But I think, 7 or 8 points, I think you're going to find fantasy footballers that are pretty underwhelmed with how they did at the end of the day. I can't see many pick sixes. but fair enough.
No bueno.
No bueno.
No bueno.
As I called it last week, my no buendito, my no buenzi, my no buenzo. Again, train went off the rails. You weren't here.
Crazy.
It
was wild last week.
I had to figure.
Garapparoons came out.
He did.
Did it? I don't think the Garapparoonie, my buddy Garapparoons. But speaking of the Garops, Tom Brady's on my no bueno list.
That's a perfect lead way I just gave you right there.
I know. Thank you.
It's too soon.
Nailed it. Tom Brady is on my no bueno list this week. I just traded for him as well. It was more of just a throw-in because I have Tony Romo. But I'm not Cincinnati's defense is far superior to Kansas City's. And look at what happened. So I think until they figure out their offensive line situation, Tom Brady's going to continue to struggle. As long as they hold out Aaron Dobson and Kenbrell Tompkins, Tom Brady's going to continue to struggle. I think that he's a guy that is in trouble going forward. He's not Tom Brady.
Now, is it him or is it what's around him?
Both. He's first drive of the game against Kansas City, threw a ball at LaFell's feet. 2 plays later, maybe 1 play later, Edelman down the sideline. It was too far. He's missing guys. 2 weeks ago, Gronk, 7-yard out pattern. Gronk's in the middle of the field, overthrows him. He's missing guys. This isn't only on the offensive line. It's more than that.
He's getting shaky in the pocket. He's getting scared in the pocket. And
he didn't run for that first down last week.
He just has happy feet, and he doesn't know what. It looks like he's a rookie quarterback. It really does. And
I'll say this about the run: linebacker was right in front of him. He was going to get blown up if he didn't throw that ball. He was going to get his head knocked off.
Get blown up.
I mean, then you're out for the game.
He needs to do something. He is Tom Brady. He needs to step up and be Tom Brady.
He needs to throw the ball with more accuracy.
Everybody, and I'm not going to get onto the Patriots thing, but everybody's blaming the offensive line. If Tom Brady's supposed to be Tom Brady, be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Go out and win games by yourself.
Good thing this isn't a Patriots podcast.
Sorry, had a vent.
I've been holding it in all really upset. Moving on, my running back one for my no buenos list is 3 of them: Fozzie Whitaker, Chris Ogmanaya, and Darren Reeves.
Is that cheating?
No, because all 3 of these guys are going to be dog food this week.
They can't. They don't even equal one right now.
Yeah. These guys, and you're talking about a shared time situation. For any of you fantasy footballers that picked up Fozzie Whitaker, Darren Reeves, drop them. You know, I think Stewart's really close to coming back. D'Angelo's going to be out a few weeks. I want nothing to do with this running back situation. I liked them last week when D'Angelo was the starter. He went out in the second or third quarter, didn't return, or tried to return, didn't return. And so these guys, no matter how bad the Bears' rush defense is, I still don't like these guys at all. And I think Cam Newton's going to be running himself.
If you had to, if you needed to choose one, if you needed to pick up one on waiver wire and play them, I mean, are you just going to flip
D'Angelo. I'll just take a 0.
Because I flip a three-headed coin and three-sided coin, see what one comes up.
They're going to go with the hot hand. It's not going to be Chris Obanai. He just got signed, so he's learning the playbook. You saw that with Trent Richardson in the trade last year, how that turned out. And you know, Darren Reeves. I think Whitaker probably because he's been there the longest.
And he went to Texas.
Hook him. So Alfred Morris is my RB2. It's Seattle. Seattle's a different team on the road, but it's still Seattle. I think Kirk Cousins could have an okay game, but you may be looking at another 5-point night from Kirk Cousins. You know, I think that Seattle's defense, they're a Super Bowl team. Super Bowl teams do what Super Bowl teams are supposed to do. They beat bad teams badly. That's what they're going to do this week. I think Seattle's going to beat them pretty good. My wide receiver 1, Reggie Wayne. It's the Ravens. Their defense is actually coming along here. You know, they're never going to be what they were. You know,
they're rebuilding it.
Yeah, they're but they look good. You know, I think that they've held wide receivers down. And listen, you're starting Reggie Wayne. You know, you're not sitting Reggie Wayne because of a matchup with the Ravens. But 6, 7, 8 point week. You know, I think that hopefully you have a guy like Eddie Lacy who went off so that he can make up for points that you're going to lose from a guy like Reggie Wayne.
I mean, Wayne's just he gets targets. It's just like you brought this up a couple weeks ago. He's just there.
Reliable.
He's just always like Andrew Luck drops back, sees someone covered, can always throw it to Reggie Wayne. Just a great possession wide receiver.
I don't not like Reggie Wayne. going forward, I like Reggie Wayne. I'm a huge Reggie Wayne guy. Just traded for him in that same league. So I like Reggie Wayne going forward. It's just a matter of it's a situation where is he a matchup play or is he a guaranteed start every week? And this week, for me, is a matchup play. My wide receiver 2, Marcus Colston, you want to talk about a guy either not as good as he used to be, being phased out of the offense. Brandon Cooks came along. There's something going on over there in New Orleans.
It's not working.
Jimmy Graham's going to get his fair share of targets. He's going to have a touchdown. You know, it's just Colston's he's so feast or famine. I think he's even worse than Vincent Jackson. I think he's worse than T.Y. Hilton has been this year. You know, he's going to be one of those guys that either gets you 100 yards and a touchdown or get you 30 yards receiving, and that's it.
These are like the definition of boom or bust players. Like basically all those 3 guys you just hit on. Like you just don't have confidence starting Colston. Like if it boils down to it and you have to, you're like, okay, I don't mind because he can give you the 100 and the touchdown and 10 catches, but there's just so many people that Drew Brees can throw to down there. It's like he's like the 6th option every time he's out there. If they go wide with Stills back, and you mentioned Cooks and Jimmy Graham and Kerry Robinson and Pierre Thomas out of the backfield, it's it just gives you a headache thinking about it.
A lot of mouths to feed.
Right.
My tight end, Travis Kelce. I like him going forward. Him or Larry Donnell, rest of the season.
Kelce.
Yeah, I'm probably going Donnell. That's because I think Eli
Red zone.
New York passes the ball more.
Donnell's going to get the
you want to tab at that from here on out? Donnell versus Kelce?
Yeah, we can tab at that.
Tab at that.
Okay.
Tab it.
Put it on a tab?
Put it on my tab.
Put it on my tab. Perfect. Travis Kelce. A guy that, listen, San Francisco gives up the 9th least fantasy points to tight ends. This isn't the New England Patriots defense. So I think you're going to be very disappointed if you start him this week against San Francisco. Unless San Francisco gets out by a lot early and they have to sling the ball. Because, like we've said, garbage time counts. But I just think that San Francisco's defense has showed no signs of letting up. They've gone down with injury after injury. We've covered it. They've showed no signs of letting up.
The best thing I read on Kelce this week is he's leading all tight ends with yards after catch. And I want to say around 160. And he showed that on Monday night.
Yeah,
he catches the ball, and he can run very well.
He reminded me of a healthy Gronk.
Whoa, no one don't.
Okay, a moderately healthy Gronk.
Way to ruin my hot sports take right there.
No, yeah. I'm not sure he's quite Gronk yet. But I think that,
Good job.
Don't be like that. I think that, I think in terms of Kelce, San Francisco is very good at avoiding yak. You know, I think they swarm that receiver for sure. And the Seattle Seahawks are my DST because they're Seattle. No buencito.
No buencito. Well, you touched on it a little bit earlier. I am definitely sitting Kirk Cousins if I have him this week, which I don't, thankfully. But he, against Seattle, even though they're playing on the road, and we've seen that they're not a fantastic defense on the road, seeing what the Giants did to the Redskins last week, I just really don't have faith in him. And this would not be the week I'm going to put him in, expecting a redemption game. So
I'm going to say Redskins win this game.
Really?
Do you want to tab bet that?
No, I already have one tab bet. This is just my bold pick of the week.
You think?
Seattle traveling
Put it on
east.
our tab.
Seattle traveling east.
What am I?
What's up?
You're a waitress?
Oh, I just say put it on our tab.
You are the waitress. That's so perfect.
Walked right into that one.
Oh, man, that was great. Thank you.
Steve's in rare form tonight.
Oh, man.
Rude Steve is out.
Get the stash back. He's a lot nicer.
I know, yeah.
I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a good week. And I'm not scared of Alfred Morris this week. Just like you guys touched on, Seattle's a different team when they're on the road, especially when they go east. I just think they're an entirely different team.
I'll tell you this. They need Alfred Morris if they're going to win this game.
Yeah, they do.
If he doesn't play well, they're in trouble.
I think this is going to be a great Monday Night Football game.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still sitting him. For my RB1.
Well, you don't have him, so you can't
It doesn't
sit him.
matter. For Steven Jackson. Again, for Jackson, this has been like such an issue in the NFL thus far. I mean, he's part of this. It's a
three-headed monster.
Four
Freeman,
in some ways.
Antone Smith. Yeah.
I mean, for him, it's just he's not getting in the end zone. He is technically their RB1, but it's just not working for him, and I just don't see him getting a lot of fantasy points. And for me, any Atlanta running back, I mean, to your earlier point, it's just not anything I'm
Carolina's the same
excited about.
situation.
Exactly.
As a Steven Jackson owner, the worst thing you can see is Antone Smith running a 35-yard touchdown.
He does it
It's
every
the
game.
worst thing.
He does it every game.
He's a Ahmad Bradshaw. He's made the most of his opportunities.
Right.
I drafted Steve Smith, I think, in the 6th round and won
Jackson?
as an RB3, and he's just kind of on my bench. I think I think if you have to play him, go ahead and play him because he's going to get you 50 carries, 15 carries.
Right.
And
Or 50. Just hand the ball off every play.
Well, but to that point, I mean, I see this as probably my other reasoning. Most likely going to be a shootout. I mean, Matt Ryan, Eli Manning last week. If it's anything of the same, I'm not sure this is going to be there's going to be a lot of running, period.
If it's a close game, I think Jackson gets the goal line carries.
Yeah, well, that would be nice because I had him too, but not going to play him. For my RB2, Joique Bell. This has been such a weird one too. It's like Reggie Bush, Joique Bell. I mean, it's this.
He's out for the game.
Yeah,
so.
he's likely to be out, right?
Yeah.
Have they said that for sure?
Yeah, he'll be out.
Okay.
So
then you don't
start
have to worry
Reggie.
about it.
Good job, sit him.
Thanks.
Do not
Smart.
start him.
Do not. But, I mean, to that point, I mean, even if he were healthy and in the game, it's been this weird thing, again, with Reggie Bush, Joique Bell. Reggie Bush might have a big game this week. You just don't know just because he's going to be out. But they have
Bush this week.
Who's there? Detroit has
Theo Riddick.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of this in the NFL, which has been really interesting this year. And
Would you rather have Theo Riddick, or one of the Carolina backs for this week?
I'd rather have whoever Theo Riddick is. I'll take Riddick all day. I think it's the lesser of two garbage situations. I think they're both going to score, same amount of points. I'm not sure Riddick even gets on the field. Listen, 10 carries, I guess. I don't know. I think that's a lot, but I think they're going to lean on. They could lean on Reggie Bush in the pass this week.
For my wide receivers, sitting Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, again, he's only had 10 catches this whole year. That is really hard to believe for someone of his caliber. Whether or not that's due to Carson Palmer being out, whether or not that's because he's just getting older and they're just not as excited about him, I'm not sure. But, man, it's not been good.
I think it's what you just meant. I think it's all of it. I think it all goes into it, and I think that Michael Floyd doesn't help his case either.
Right. Yeah, there's someone else good. So, yeah, especially with Drew Stanton at the helm, I don't expect a whole lot from Larry Fitzgerald until Carson Palmer's back in. Then maybe we can talk about it.
If you've held on to Larry Fitzgerald this long, don't sell low because you're not going to get that much. You're better off just throwing him on your bench and riding the wave. Yeah. Unless you can package him with another guy to get a stud.
As a throw-in.
Yeah.
For my second wide receiver, Andre Johnson, again, he's just also not been particularly productive in fantasy, scoring combined 14 points in his last 3 games. So I don't see him doing much. I think his ankle's hurt this week too, so not particularly excited about Andre Johnson this week or not as much moving forward. My tight end, Coby Fleener. Through 4 games, the Ravens have allowed the fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends and have yet to have a tight end score on them. So we'll see. And also the other interesting in Indianapolis is there's a tight end tandem with him and Dwayne Allen. So it's interesting there. You don't see that a ton, but that's I'm not particularly excited about him this week, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him moving forward too.
He's not even the best tight end on his own team.
Yeah.
If there's anything worse than a running back by committee, I think it's a tight end by committee. Especially like starting them in fantasy.
Right.
Just
stay away from Coby Fleener. Dwayne, if you want one there, it's Dwayne Allen.
Yep.
That's the guy that gets the red zone looks, and ultimately touchdowns is what wins you weeks, not yards.
And for my DST, Arizona, I mean, they would be a defense I would start most games. This game, I'm not hugely excited about them. They're in Denver. Denver's coming off a bye. I think they're just going to be out there slinging it, and I just don't see Arizona having a huge game defensively.
We talk about Seattle. The three of us talk about Seattle's defense. And whatever offensive guys we have, you're sitting against Seattle for the most part, in large part. Is this a situation where whoever Denver is playing, you're sitting that defense?
No, I would have full confidence playing Arizona this week.
Yeah.
I think they're a legit defense. I was very worried on them. I kind of got rid of them when they had all the injuries when Dockett goes out and Dansby's injured suspended for the year. But they are they are lethal. They just bring the boom every single time.
I mean, I think if you have a better option, it's always good to pick up a second defense. Don't drop them.
Yeah.
Unless you're in an 8-team league, I guess. But don't drop them because I think it's going to be a situation where next week you can play them. But maybe for this week you sit them. I could certainly understand somebody sitting them.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. I think Denver's a tough place to play. Again, they're coming off a bye. It's more the fact that it's in Denver, and Denver's going to be ready to go. So
I hear you. I'll touch on that a little bit in a second.
Oh,
but
good. Can't wait.
Let me get to my quarterback real quick
Please
on the
do.
No Bueno list. Cam Newton, I am just completely done with him.
Yeah.
To me, he is not a starter in a 10-team league, a 12-team league, a 14-team league, maybe 16. You might be battling with Glennon right there at that point. I am just not playing
What
this
happened?
guy. He's not running. He had 7 rushing yards last week.
Do you think that's because he's afraid he's been hurt?
It has to be. He has to be injured. Every time he gets hit, he's just getting slowly off the ground.
Yep.
He just doesn't look good.
Doesn't look healthy.
When he's out there. I mean, he's still making passes. I really think that rib injury is really
He
hurting
was
him.
taking some tough hits last week.
And it's just not the same Cam Newton. And without his legs, Cam Newton to me is basically useless as a fantasy quarterback. He's had 34 rushing yards all year, and that's just he gets that on one run in his first game usually, being regular Cam Newton. He just doesn't look right to me. I'd keep him on my bench because people love Cam Newton. They just love the name.
Yeah.
So maybe you can get him, package him in a deal if someone's coming up on a bye week, but I am not starting him.
Yeah.
For the running back, like you touched on, Arizona, the one benefit Arizona has is they can shut down a running game. They're third in the NFL right now against opposing running backs, points per game allowed. It's just crazy. They just buckle down. They tackle people, kind of like like you said with San Fran. All those West teams, they just know how to wrap up and bring people down. They don't let people get out of their grasp once they have them. They're just a very rough defense, and Monte Ball has not had a good year so far.
He hasn't done what you drafted him in the first round for.
I was probably one of the higher people on him. I was drafting him in that 11th or 12th pick range, and it's just in the leagues that I actually did that, it has just burned me so bad.
Rest of the year. Alfred Morris or Monte Ball. Cue the dramatic pause.
Standard or PPR? I mean,
Standard.
Standard Alfred Morris.
But PPR, you go Ball?
I think eventually after this tough schedule, he has San Fran coming up. I think he's going to have a couple tough weeks here, but then I think he should finally, get past that. But it's just been ugly so
Alfred
far.
Morris plays that same division, San Fran, Seattle. So I think that you're talking about even in PPR, I think he's going to be more productive. You're talking about a run-first team in Washington right now. With Kirk Cousins, they're game managing, they're running the ball. I like Alfred, and I'm not a huge Alfred Morris guy. I like Alfred Morris rest of the year.
Me too.
I had a choice in a trade between either him or Monte. I went Alf.
I think that's a good choice.
Alf.
Would you let me get to my next one?
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
My bad.
That wasn't awkward at all.
My RB2s.
What I'm here for.
My RB2s are the New England running backs. Stephen Ridley is droppable in all leagues.
Really?
Droppable in all leagues. Shane Vereen, I guess if you're in a PPR, hang on to him because that's what he's there for.
I don't think he's that bad.
Vereen or Ridley?
Vereen. Ridley, I'm not dropping Ridley either. I think he has trade value.
Vereen, I'm keeping on my team. Ridley, if you trade him, try doing whatever you can. I don't know what someone would be offering back to you. Here's a good one: Ridley or Jonathan Stewart.
Ridley, not even close. Not even close.
I'm wondering
At
if
least he
Stewart
can
is
stay on
back.
the field.
I'm wondering if Stewart's back. If I would take Stewart over him.
If he fumbles, yeah, you're taking him off the field. He's getting taken off by Belichick. But right now, so far this year, he's been solid in terms of not fumbling the ball. So, I mean,
He's
listen.
been doing well at that, but production-wise, he hasn't been doing too
I
well.
think you're jumping the gun. I think you're being a little too impatient. Am I starting him? No. But, I mean, throwing him on the bench, I don't see the problem with that. I don't think there's anybody out on waivers right now that is good enough or better than Ridley. I think the high upside of Ridley is better than anybody you're going to find on the waiver wire, even in a 10-team league.
Jerick McKinnon or Stephen Ridley?
Stephen Ridley.
I'm the opposite of that. I'd rather have McKinnon. I think he's going to take over Asiata eventually, but
So why are you being patient with McKinnon and not with Ridley? Because Ridley technically gets the start.
I think McKinnon is emerging, and I think Stephen Ridley is just going to stay the same course. I don't think he brings anything new to the table. I mean, he hasn't in the past 2 years.
That offense has to – they have to – the receivers have to start catching the ball. Brady's got to get it to him. that's going to open things up for the run. And they've also, I mean, listen, Kansas City's stout against the run, and that's why they didn't use Ridley. They came out throwing the ball. And the same thing's for Vereen. I think Vereen's going to eventually turn it on. Will Brady? I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll turn on enough for these guys to be productive, but I certainly don't think they're droppable.
My wide receiver one is Brandon Marshall, and this isn't anything skill-wise. I think Chicago is really thinking about just sitting him 1 week. Their bye week is later on. It's not coming up anytime soon. Like, they just need to get this guy right. Not even, for him, but the offense is so much better when it's a healthy Brandon Marshall and a healthy Alshon Jeffrey to go with the Martellus Bennett and the Matt Forte. So sitting him maybe 1 week might benefit him and the team more going forward. I don't know if it's going to happen this week. He only got, I think he has 3 catches in the past 2 weeks. But he's still a red zone target, so he's going to get you that touchdown probably. And it's just very tough to throw a guy out there hoping to get 8.5 points or 9 points.
If Alshon Jeffrey's healthy, then
the more they
target him more.
The more they lose, the more Brandon Marshall will be counted on in that offense, which means he's not coming off the field. They need him to be successful. And you just saw what happened to Carolina last week, -4 fantasy points. That's an awful week. Listen, I'm not saying Carolina's the New England defense. They're going to be good, but I think that you drafted Marshall in the 3rd round, maybe the 4th. You got to start him. You got to go with him. He's an every week start just because of the way you draft him. Unless you picked up, maybe a Kelvin Benjamin like you touched on earlier. I think that you really got to think about
if he's playing, you're playing him, and it's just tough because he's limited when he's injured.
But I understand the matchup as well.
Wide receiver 2, you kind of touched on him earlier. I'm going to go down to Tampa Bay. Vincent Jackson. He's just so whack-a-mole-ish. You just don't know what's going to happen each time. It's just
very feast or famine.
Yeah, and with Glennon in there, I do think he's at an advantage, but I don't think it's a better advantage than it's been all season. Really, it
absolutely is.
I just don't think he's going to produce. Yes, he could go out this week and have 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, and everybody will be like, "Oh, I'm so glad I played him." But he's going to go out and he's going to give you 2 points off 1 catch.
Right.
But the question is he more likely to give you the 150 and 3 with Glennon or with what was his name? McCown. Yeah, I'm bad with names.
He has 13 catches all season, and you kind of hit it that to answer your question, he's better with Glennon. But he only had 2 or 3 catches last week as well. He did get that awesome game-winning touchdown, which he celebrated really hard on. But I'm just not buying him going forward. I am trying to sell him at whatever I can get, whatever it is.
I would wait on him for now because I think that, like I alluded to earlier, Glennon looked for him their 2 last trips down the field. The one he actually missed Vincent Jackson once in the end zone the second to last drive, and he found him on that last drive. He looks towards Jackson's way.
I think Evans being out does hurt him as well. And you said that a little bit earlier. I want to get to my tight end real quick. Eric Ebron, who a lot of people are picking up because of the news to Joseph Fourier being out. Now, a lot of people think his reps are going to go up, and they probably will.
He scored the touchdown.
He did. He finally broke out for a touchdown. I think he's a guy that you pick up and maybe keep on your roster. But I'm not sure about starting him this week because we don't know how he's going to be used in this offense right now with him and Pettigrew.
Jury's still out.
And then for my defense, it's the Houston Texans. If we're talking about hot offenses, and we talked about the Giants earlier, when the Cowboys are rolling, right, they're Romoing, I guess. Nick, you hit it on the head. I think they're going to establish the pass this week, and I think DeMarco is going to get passing. I expect all their wide receivers to have big games. It's just I think they're going to air it out down there.
At some point, as a fantasy owner, you got to see something, and as a Cowboy fan, you have to see something more out of Dallas and them beating up on a bad Saints defense.
I think this is a good – and they're playing Houston. It's a Texas rivalry, I guess you could say.
That gives them a little more pep in their step.
So, Romo wants to go in there and make sure people know who the team in Texas is, and I think they're going to come out hucking and chucking Texas football, baby.
Hook 'em. Or is that the wrong?
No, they're in Dallas.
Okay, fair enough.
Close enough. It's all Texas.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that about does it. It was a it's been an interesting 5 weeks or almost 5 weeks in the NFL, so we will see what happens. I'm sure we'll have a lot to touch on next week too. So thank you for joining us. You can tweet us at Uncle Stav, at Nick Lesogor.
3-1 in the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football League. Thank you.
Thankfully,
Same thing.
Woo! First place.
See, you didn't add that in there. I can't see it.
and they're both really modest, thank God. You can follow me as well at Katelyn Jean. Tweet us this weekend if you have any questions. Tweet,
Love to answer start sets.
Would love to. So tweet us, or you can shoot us an email at fantasyfootball@dirtywaternews.com, and we'll be excited to get back to you at that point.
I might be struggling with those because I have my alumni baseball game on Sunday in the afternoon.
You shaved the stash. Are you going to be as good?
I gotta get the arm loose. I gotta
geez.
get the oil can out
Oh,
for the
jeez.
old.
This is the Tin Man over here.
Maybe you'll finish first place in that for once.
I don't know. We got
my.
beat. The alumni got beat pretty bad last year by the new guys, but
Oh, well, best of luck. We'll talk about it next week. Can't wait to bring it to you.
come
Thanks
back on
for
crutches.
Oh God.
Adios.
Thanks for joining us.